All right, guys, welcome back to another. I was going to say interview there, but no, another podcast on the MMA Unhinged channel, and we are back. Me and Oscar are back on the road, back on the show, and this is the first one in a while. So we've been away, so we've got to kind of come back, and we're coming back in spectacular fashion. We're coming back in a fantastic event. UFC 286 goes down this weekend. First and foremost, Oscar, how are you doing?
I've been better, so personal issues stopped the show from going on for the past couple of months, but we are back like we never left. And this is the perfect card to come back to because the main event this Saturday goes down in London, your stomping grounds. So I know for a fact that the hype is next level over there.
Yeah, it's always good when the UFC comes back to England. It's a fantastic show, and obviously they stack it every time, and it's beautiful. We've got such a great, as we talked about, a great episode to talk about. Obviously we had some great fights on the weekend. Merab Dvalishvili versus obviously Peter Yan at Las Vegas in the fantastic arena. I thought that little throwback, it felt like the really old UFC. I know I wasn't really around to watch the old UFC in the casinos, but it kind of felt like that, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and not to mention the theater at Virgin Hotels Las Vegas was packed with Georgians in full support of Merab Dvalishvili, and he truly delivered in that main event, did he not?
Absolutely. We were talking about it before we went on air, and I felt like Peter Yan was the favourite heading into the fight. I felt like he was the better fighter, and if Merab was going to win, maybe it was going to be just a flash knockout or something like that. I didn't really see Merab winning the way he did. 50-45 in all scorecards. It's not too bad, and obviously he looks spectacular, and he puts himself in the number one contender spot with an awkward situation at the top.
Yeah, I expected Merab to at least win the first round because he is the better wrestler in this matchup, but eventually his striking defense wasn't going to hold up. But Merab has improved every time we see him in there. He's looking better and better with his striking, and he used that striking to bust up Peter Yan. Peter Yan looked physically and mentally defeated at the end of that fight. Yan was unable to land anything to hurt Merab. Merab is extremely durable, and he was able to attempt 49 takedowns in this fight, and he didn't look gassed at the end of the fight either. So it's a memorable accomplishment for Merab because he just broke the attempted takedowns record. A lot of people are saying that is not impressive. I would tell those people to try 49 takedowns. Those people will have passed out if they try it.
Yeah, absolutely agree. It's fun. Obviously, 48 or 49 attempted takedowns, 11 landed. It's truly what he can put on. His nickname, or should we say, in MMA is the Machine, and he truly showed it that night. It was fantastic. His gas tank didn't look like he was ever going to slow down, and obviously his grappling prowess and how he mixes it up is fantastic. And it's an awkward situation. I kind of put out a post on Monday, and I was like, where does Aljo go from here? And you kind of said to it that obviously Aljo is that the weight cuts are hard on him. So I do agree, and I think that's what we'll see next week. I think we'll see obviously Aljo defend the belt against Henry Cejudo, whether he wins or not, and then go up to 145.
Yeah, Merab Dvalishvili with his win got himself the number one contender position over Sugar Sean O'Malley, but that doesn't really matter because Sugar Sean was already promised the title shot against the winner of Sterling versus Cejudo in May. So I don't know why Dana White would even be mad about Merab not wanting to fight Sterling, because if you ask me, Sterling wouldn't be champion by the time Merab gets his shot. Sterling, I think, will lose to Cejudo, and after that, I believe he'll just move up to featherweight. And I think at featherweight, he can do pretty well against a lot of guys.
Yeah, obviously you got the featherweight champion, 145 pounds, Alexander Volkanovski. It'd be good to see him mix it up there with obviously the best. But yeah, a fantastic fight that we had this weekend. Obviously, and then we'll talk about the co-main event, and then we'll briefly go down the card. We're going to try and make these podcasts a little bit quicker so they're more interactive. And we just don't want to drain your ears as much as we did in the past. But yeah, in the co-main event, we had Alexander Volkov versus Alexandra Romanov. When heading into this fight, I thought Romanov, obviously coming off that close, obviously that loss against Marcin Tybura, and I thought they gave him Volkov, and I didn't want to disrespect it. I thought maybe they're throwing him a bit in the deep end, and then I feel like we realized in this fight once again that maybe where we thought Romanov is where he isn't there yet.
This was the classic veteran versus prospect fight. And I usually go with the veterans in those spots, especially when we're talking about a veteran who's the tallest guy in the division. In fact, the whole UFC. Volkov is a monster, but he will have setbacks against the cream of the crop. And I've never believed Romanov to be the cream of the crop. I believe he has major cardio issues. The striking is very poor, if you ask me. And Volkov, he's worked on that takedown defense before, and he beat the guy Marcin Tybura, who beat Romanov. And in that fight, he stuffed Tybura's takedowns, and he was able to fight hard 15 minutes there. And Romanov cannot do that. In fact, he looked tired after the first takedown attempt. But don't get me wrong, Volkov grabbed the fence, and he accidentally headbutted Romanov in there. So that may have contributed to Romanov going away so easily. But either way, Volkov was just too much for the young Romanov.
Absolutely, Volkov, as you talked about, he loses to the cream of the crop. You know, the top fighters at the division, Derek Lewis, obviously, and that would be a good chance for him to run it back. Obviously, Derek Lewis on a bit of a low run at the moment, and obviously Volkov getting 2 back-to-back wins now. So maybe a chance, possibility they run it back. Obviously, Volkov, as we talked about, a very, very good fight, and obviously he tests the young coming through. And Romanov, not his day, not his fight, and obviously now falls to 2 losses back-to-back, Marcin Tybura and now Volkov. So he's in a tough spot. Maybe the UFC put him back and just maybe put him up against a fighter that's a winnable fight for him, and see if he can get back onto his feet. But yeah, it's interesting to see where they go from here. Volkov putting himself into a good spot, beating another prospect, and then we'll talk about the next fight. Nikita Krylov versus Ryan Spann. This was the 3rd fight of the evening. This was meant to main event, a fight night a few weeks back, and then it got rescheduled, and now they fought on the show in Las Vegas. Nikita Krylov got that submission within a round against Ryan Spann. Ultimately, this is what I thought would happen. I thought Nikita Krylov is way too dangerous in that first round. We've seen it against Gustafsson. We've seen it in plenty of times. I think we saw it against off the top of my head, might be Paul Craig, but I'm maybe
tripping. He almost knocked out Paul Craig in round 1. Yeah. He's done very well in the first round before, but he does leave himself open to be finished himself in that first round. So that's why I saw a lot of people taking Ryan Spann, especially since Ryan Spann is claiming that he wasn't trying before. And even though he was trying and he didn't have the rough weight cut for this one, Nikita Krylov simply had the better skills and surprisingly the better fight IQ too.
Yeah, absolutely. Nikita Krylov submitting him. He was always going to have the advantage on the ground. Ryan Spann, as you talked about, saying that he doesn't train as much, and I feel like he needs to start taking this a lot seriously if he wants to beat these guys.
But he did say he was taking this one very seriously. In fact, he said he was ready to make a run for the title, but that's just not the case for Ryan Spann. I just think he's a little too old now to actually start changing his ways. And Nikita Krylov was able to get the triangle off of his back. And Nikita Krylov is now on a serious run right now. He's had 4 fights in the past year. He was able to beat Gustafsson, Uzdemir, and now Spann. Those are pretty major names of this division. I believe he deserves a step up in competition. I would say you have him go in there against Anthony Smith once Anthony Smith just mollywops Johnny Walker.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's a main event coming up in a few weeks as well. So yeah, that's a great main event. I'm looking forward to it. But I totally agree. Nikita Krylov definitely deserves a chance to step up now. Maybe the top 5, top 6. He'll be looking at. But yeah, they were the top 3 fights of the card. Obviously, it was a fantastic event. Main event was fantastic. I enjoyed the main event, even though obviously it was primarily grappling and domination. But it was fascinating to me because I hadn't seen that happened to Yan yet. So I really enjoyed it. And obviously Volkov put on a fantastic performance, so did Nikita Krylov. But we'll talk roughly a bit about the cards. Mostly there was decisions, but we had a few standout performances. Mario Batista obviously getting that submission against Gidi Canetti obviously made it look easy. But we both wanted to talk about Davy Grant versus Rafael Sensao. Obviously that inverted triangle choke. It was a thing of beauty. Submitting a black belt, he talked about it like that. You get like Rafael Sensao. It was amazing. Obviously, sent him to the retirement home.
Yeah, in my opinion, Sensei probably bagged rounds 1 and 2 with his superior grappling, but it didn't matter in the end because we have a situation where David Grant grabs the fence on a takedown attempt in the third round, and instead of being put back on the ground, the referee takes away a point and keeps them standing. And that decision right there may have cost Sensao his friendly goodbye to the UFC. Instead, he goes out unconscious after Davy Grant lands an epic spinning back fist, and then Sensao tries to dump Davy Grant, but he gets caught in an inverted triangle, and Davy Grant had that in very tight. Sensao did not quit, and his arm went limp, and it was over.
Yeah,
Absolutely
absolutely.
epic submission. I would say it's probably the second best submission of the year so far. I would have Grasso and Shevchenko at number 1 right now, but that was absolutely epic. You've never seen inverted triangles like that, especially when we're talking about a guy in the sense that who's made a career on his grappling.
Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, I can't even remember when I saw the last inverted triangle. Maybe off the top of my head, Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier. That's what I'm thinking.
It was Jordan Levitt versus Matt Sales, I believe 2 years
There we
ago.
go.
Yeah, that
But
was
yeah,
a rare sight.
very rare submission. Very, very good. Obviously fantastic to see David Grant get the win. Obviously, the hometown, obviously my home countryman, David Grant getting the win from England. That's 2 back-to-back to him. He beat Lewis Smoker, now beat Rafael Sensao. Arguably his best win in his career thus far. He's been in the career. He's been in the UFC for a very, very long time. He's beat Marlon Vera actually. So one of his best wins. But yeah, he's lost against Marlon Vera as well. And then obviously a few fights ago, he had a split decision loss against Adrian Yanez. So he's a very dangerous fighter, as his nickname says. Anyway, very dangerous, very obviously experienced. Obviously, what's he? 37. I want to say 37 years of age. He's not getting any younger, so he's got to make his time now. And obviously, beat Rafael Sensao. I think it's a great platform to set him up for a next fight. So we'll see where he goes from here. I'd love to see him obviously up against top 15. He said that he did want a quick turnaround at UFC London, but obviously it didn't happen. So which other fight would you like to talk about? Obviously we could talk about Bruno Silva, obviously landing that big front kick down the middle and then submitting Tyson Nam.
Yeah, Bruno Silva was coming off of 2 knockout victories before he got injured and was out for a long time. I believe it was over a year now. And now he came in against Tyson Nam, who's a knockout artist, and he did not respect his power. He just went in there, kicked him right in the face, and then wrapped up a submission. Could be more impressed with Bruno Silva. In fact, that performance earned him a number 15 ranking spot. From here, it's only up for Bruno Silva. He's at that fight-ready gym. Henry Cejudo is probably helping him formulate those game plans, and I believe it's going to take him a long way. I know he's got losses to Tagir Ulanbekov, David Dvorak, Khalid Taha, but I believe he's a better fighter than he used to be.
Absolutely agree. Fantastic showcase. Fantastic showing for the Brazilian. Obviously, that is now 3 back-to-back wins, beating JP Buys, Victor Rodriguez, and now Tyson Nam, the biggest scalp of his career. So obviously, Tyson Nam been around in the game for a very long time. M1 Global former fighter, I believe, champion as well. So yeah, a very good win for Bruno Silva. We'll see where he goes from here. And we'll just quickly top up on the rest of the fights. Nothing, major on them. Mario Batista beating Gedi Canetti. Straightforward, very simple. Vitor Petrino beating Anton Turjarj. Don't I say second name? But that was a fantastic. To Harley, yeah, that was a fantastic fight. It was a very, very evenly matched. But they're both in that third round. I think the gas was showing a little bit. Carl Williams beating Lucas Brzezinski. And obviously we talked about David Grant, Josh Fiend beating the debutant Cedrico Domas. Obviously he came off the Contender Series. There was a lot of hype, I would say, going into this one for him. And obviously it was got put off really quick. Obviously Josh Fiend, very, if you look at his record, he's a very, very good fighter. So and then Victor Henry, someone that I think is very underrated in that bantamweight division, but the bantamweight division is so stacked. It's incredible. He beat Tony Gravely. Ariane Lipsky, the queen of elbows or violence, one of them beat JJ Aldrich, and obviously Colston Harris getting back to winning ways versus Jared Gooden, who returned back to the UFC. Obviously, it was phenomenal. He came in overweight. Carlton Harris still got that the win, but credit to Carlton Harris taking that fight, and obviously credit to Jared Gooden as well taking that fight. Yeah, but that was last weekend, and we have recapped that in 15 minutes. That's got to be a world record for us.
I would say so. We still harp on every single fight, but I believe it's time to get into the UFC 286 pay-per-view card featuring the champion Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman in a trilogy bout for the welterweight championship. I cannot wait for this one because the first fight was a clear Kamaru Usman win. Second fight was going to be a clear Kamaru Usman win, but Leon Edwards refused to quit. He goes for his signature 1-2 head kick, and Kamaru Usman's boxing training taught him to bob his head to the side, and it cost him. He ate a clean head kick from Leon, and he was out. That was one of the most epic KOs in UFC history, one of the most epic comebacks in UFC history. And Leon Edwards has been riding the momentum ever since. He's got a newfound confidence about him. And Kamaru Usman suffered his first loss in the UFC. And we're going to see how he bounces back here. My official pick for this fight is Kamaru Usman by unanimous decision. If you take out that head kick from the first fight, sure, you had Leon Edwards get the takedown in the first round, take Usman's back, and secure that first round. But outside of that, he was getting dominated by Kamaru Usman. And had Herb Dean not separated Usman from the clinch, because he had Edwards pinned up against the fence, but he wasn't really doing anything with it, so Herb Dean separated them, and that allowed Edwards to get the moment. Had that not happened, I think Usman comfortably wins the decision there. How do you see this one going?
Pretty much the same way you described it. I think that's how everyone surely is looking at this, unless you're blind or feel like I don't know what it is, but everyone watched that first fight. Everyone know what happened in that first, the first 5 rounds. The first round, obviously, very close. Obviously, he won it, got the takedown, controlled him. But everyone knows what happened in that first fight. It was pretty much after that first round domination from Kamaru Usman. Leon Edwards gassed, obviously not blamed it, but obviously blamed it on the altitude. And in this one, you've got to obviously have that in consideration as well. He'll be going down in altitude. So for me, though, Kamaru Usman is going to win this fight, and it's going to be a decision. I feel like we're going to see Leon Edwards make it more competitive because of the altitude is lower, and he's going to have feel more comfortable in there, and it's not as high as obviously his last fight. I can't remember where it was, but I know the altitude.
The last fight was in Salt Lake City, Utah.
There we go. Salt Lake City, obviously much higher in the UK in terms of altitude wise. So it's going to be more competitive for more rounds, but eventually Leon Edwards will gas again, or not gas, but slow down, and that's where Kamaru Usman will obviously find his best his best work. And I feel like the first 2 rounds will be really close, and then the third, the fourth, and the fifth is where Kamaru Usman will take over and win the unanimous decision.
Yeah, and in terms of changes, the guys can make heading into this one, they really can't make much changes. In fact, I would say that the first and second fight wasn't super different. They're still the same type of fighters. And Kamaru Usman simply has the edge on the feet, and the edge in the wrestling and grappling realms. So I just think Usman has the better skill set here. He just needs to avoid getting caught again. But there could be a situation where we have Usman coming in very timid, afraid of getting knocked out again, because we've never seen him come back from a knockout before. So there are question marks here, but if everything goes well for Usman, I think we're talking about Usman getting back on track to being one of the greatest of all time, because that's where he was before this. In fact, he was about to surpass Anderson Silva for the longest win streak in the UFC.
Yeah, obviously being a Brit, obviously I'd love to see Leon Edwards get it done. I think every Brit would love to see Leon Edwards get it done. But yeah, if you look at the challenge in front of him, if you look at the challenge that was in front of him last time, it was like of a impossible challenge, and now you look at it now, it's feel like I just can't see the way Kamaru Usman doesn't lose this fight. But we said that last time, and crazy things happen to MMA, and obviously if it happens again, then it ain't no fluke. So obviously I hope Leon Edwards get it done. It's a fantastic fight, fantastic main event, and a fantastic main event for the London crowd. Bring the title fight, the first title fight inside England since Michael Bisping versus Dan Henderson at 205, I believe.
206, that was it.
Oh, there we
Fantastic.
go.
Fantastic
6, yeah,
event
that's it.
that was.
205 was McGregor, yeah.
Yeah, and that card was like in the middle of the morning, from
Yeah,
what I
6
heard.
a.m. How dare they
Yeah.
do that to us? That was crazy, isn't it? They came all
Well,
the way over to England and they made the fans go out at 6 a.m. But it was still packed out crowd. So it shows you that obviously our crowd is different, man.
this time around, they're actually going to be on UK time. The card
Yeah.
is going to be at about 5 p.m. over here in the US. So they're going to be on the UK time. So the fans will not be half asleep this time around. And it's going to be truly, truly epic.
And let's keep the ball rolling. Let's talk about the co-main event. Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev. Fantastic fight. Two strikers, I would say. Obviously, Justin Gaethje, yeah, he does have that wrestling background, but he doesn't tend to lean on it as much as we've seen. As we've seen anyway in his career, he tends to lean on that striking, the power that he has in his hands, and the brawling and he obviously his chin to get him through it. But Rafael Fiziev, we talked about it briefly. He's an accurate striker. He's a very, very good striker. He's a coach at Toiga Muay Thai, so that tells you a lot of how good he is. And this one, we talked about it. The problem is, I thought it as well that Rafael Fiziev just could be too technical for Justin Gaethje. We have seen obviously that sole loss from Rafael Fiziev. That's when he got knocked out by that spinning back kick by I forgot his name, Mustayev, I think.
Yeah, Magomed Mustafayev.
Yeah, and obviously, does Justin Gaethje have a spinning back fist in his locker? I haven't seen one, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's the only loss of Rafael Fiziev career, and I don't see him getting clipped with that again. But if you look at Justin Gaethje, he's literally the king of violence. We've seen it multiple times in his career. None more so than obviously inside the UFC. Has some fantastic fights with Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, a lot. But yeah, this one is a tough ask for both men. I'm leaning more towards Justin Gaethje just because of the experience and who he's fought. He's been there in them 5 rounds fights and 3-round fights, and he came out on top. But you talked about it, the technicality of Rafael Fiziev could cause Justin Gaethje some problems. And to be honest, it wouldn't surprise me if he does clip him and knock him out.
I do believe that Fiziev has a shot at getting a knockout here against Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje getting hurt is nothing new. In his first UFC fight, Michael Johnson had him on skates, but eventually he made the comeback. He has hit a lot in his fights, and I believe now that he's 34, 35, it's bound to catch up to him. In fact, against Charles Oliveira, that was not the best of looks to be hurt by Charles Oliveira right away, and I believe Gaethje was extremely reckless in that fight, and Charles Oliveira took full advantage of it, was able to knock down Gaethje and take his back and submit him. I do think Fiziev will get a knockdown at least in this fight, but I don't think he puts away Gaethje. Gaethje's just too damn tough for his own good. I kind of wish it was a 5-round fight because that would uh, that would be something special. But it being a co-main event slot means these guys can go at a higher pace, and it's bound to be fight of the night. And I think both guys will have their moments, but I do think Fiziev is more technical, and of course younger, quicker. I do believe his kicking game is better than Gaethje's as well. So I think at the end of the day, these lightweight legends are gonna start going down the rankings. If you see the rankings from the Habib era, they were completely different. Now we got these young guys coming in: Mateusz Gamrot, Beneil Dariush, Arman Sarukian. Uh, the list goes on and on of these young guys that are going to start taking the legends spots, and I think this is going to be an unfortunate case here because Justin Gaethje, one of my favorite fighters ever to watch, but I just think Fiziev cannot point him here, and look good doing it. So Fiziev by decision is my pick here.
Yeah, I obviously a fantastic fight, can go either way. I'm going with Gaethje, the experience. Obviously being around in the UFC for a very long time, had them tough fights. Chandler, Charles Oliveira, Habib, Tony. He's been in them, them type of dog fights. But Rafael Fiziev, a different problem, a different striker, a different fighter in front of him, and he's going to see a more of a technical, more of a one of the best technical strikers inside the UFC that we've ever had. So in front of him, yeah. But let's move on to the rest of the fights. Obviously, we've got some really good fights. We're top on them. Obviously, quickly. Gunnar Nelson, Brian Barberena, fantastic fight. Another fight tonight potential. In this one, I got to be honest, I'm leaning Brian Barberena. I think he's got all the wins to get this one done.
That is a true shock to me because Brian Barberena has been submitted multiple times in the UFC. In fact, his last fight was a first round submission loss to Rafael dos Anjos. And Gunnar Nelson was one of the best BJJ practitioners to ever enter the octagon. I believe the gap on the ground is far too great. I expect Gunnar Nelson to get a second round rear naked choke submission. I just think Brian Barberena can beat a lot of the lower level guys, a lot of the more weathered guys. But Gunnar Nelson is very smart on the feet. He has that karate stance where sometimes he will get caught, but Brian Barberena is, I would say, he's very predictable. And when he swings those big hooks, it'll allow for Gunnar Nelson to get a takedown. And eventually, when Barberena tries to get back up, he's going to give up his back and get choked out.
Yeah, I would have agreed. But the problem, obviously, Nelson, he returned back to the MMA. His last fight against Takashi Sato. And Sato's been submitted by Miguel Baeza, and obviously they went to a decision. So that was my thinking anyway. But obviously he was away for a very long time. And I just feel like Brian Barberena will be able to do enough and maybe potentially get a ground and pound finish or a knockout. Obviously, we've seen a few knockouts with Barberena against Matt Brown, not Matt Brown, against Robbie Lawler. Obviously, so he's looking good as of late. It's just that loss against Rafael dos Anjos, which I believe. No, they didn't. He didn't step in short notice. That wasn't a short notice fight. But yeah, this is a good fight. It's a good task. It's a good assignment. I just don't see. Obviously, Gunnar Nelson didn't submit Takashi Sato, and Takashi Sato got submitted by Miguel Baeza. So MMA math never works, but that was my theory.
Yeah, the deal there with Sato and Nelson was Sato refused to do anything offensively, so it created no openings for Gunnar to get the submission. He was happy losing a decision that night.
And now we've got the three main fights. Well, we have got some fantastic fights as well. We've got Marlon Vettori versus Rem Delite. But Jennifer Moore or Casey O'Neill, we'll keep this one short. This is a tough fight for Casey O'Neill, but I think she's going to win it. Jennifer Moore, she's experienced. She's a veteran. She's been in there, obviously, with the best up in the division. But I think Casey O'Neill is breaking through, and this will be her chance to shine.
Yeah, for Casey O'Neill, this is a big step up, I would say. Jennifer Maia beat her previous opponent, Roxanne Modafferi. Roxanne Modafferi was able to land over 100 significant strikes against Casey O'Neill. Casey O'Neill got beat up in that fight, and that's not the best of looks because Roxanne was never known for her striking. Of course, it was a clear win for Casey. She herself landed over 200 significant strikes. But for me, she's young and inexperienced. She's coming off a year-long layoff. Hasn't fought since February of 2022, and she tore her ACL, I believe, in that fight. So I really don't know what to expect from her. And Jennifer Maya is not going to get bullied on the ground here, like Casey O'Neill's other opponents have gotten bullied out, like Antonina Shevchenko, Laura Procopio, Shannon Dobson. That's not going to happen in Jennifer Maya. Shevchenko even got put on her back against Jennifer Maya. So I think Jennifer Maya wins this one by split decision. She shouldn't be this big of an underdog against somebody inexperienced like Casey O'Neill. I think Jennifer Maya has beaten strikers that are better than Casey O'Neill, like Marina Moros in her last fight. That was a solid win for her. I think she can win with the better striking if she can stay away from the constant grappling.
Yeah, it's a tough fight for Casey O'Neill, but we'll see what happens. Marvin Vettori versus Roman Dolidze. This one is an absolute. It's ridiculously good. Obviously, Roman Dolidze on a form of his life right now. Carl Dawkins beat Phil Hawes, and obviously Jack Manson, pure domination in that last fight. And then, as for Marvin Vettori, obviously he's got to the best and lost to the best. Lost to Israel Adesanya, lost to Robert Whittaker. He beat Paulo Costa, beat Kevin Holland, beat Jack Manson. But I think Roman Dolidze is a new wave of 185-pound fighter coming through. This is a really tough fight for me to pick, but I think I'm going to go with the Georgian. I think I'm going to go with Roman Dolidze.
I'm going to make this the told you so fight of the week right here. Marvin Vettori to me is a much better fighter than Roman Dolidze. Dolidze is a guy that relies a lot on his physicality, but the cardio is not great. And in my opinion, he's just taking advantage of his opponent's weaknesses in his last couple of bouts. So he was able to KO Kaldakis. Kaldakis has proven not to be all that durable. Then he takes on Phil Hawes. Phil Hawes has some kind of leg injury, and then he knocks out Phil Hawes. Phil Hawes is not all that durable. And then he goes in against Jack Manson. That was a real standout performance to me right there. He was able to get a leg lock of sorts on Jack Manson and pound him out. That was a really cool finish there. I'll give him credit for that, but I don't think he gets that against Marvin Vettori. I don't think Marvin Vettori is going to want to grapple all that much here on the ground. I think he can get some control time in the clinch, but in my opinion, he's a better striker here. Roman Dolidze just likes to throw those big bombs, but he doesn't have much technique behind them. So I definitely believe Marvin Vettori can outpace him here and look much better on the feet. Roman Dolidze lost to Trevin Giles not that long ago. And we know where Trevin Giles is at now. He's at welterweight, struggling against the lower half of the competition there. So I don't think all that highly of Dolidze, and I do think highly of Vettori. I think Vettori should 100% win this fight by unanimous decision.
Yeah, it's a tough fight. It's a very interesting fight. 185 pounds. Obviously, Roman Dolidze been on a really good form as of late. But yeah, you do mention that Trevin Giles fight, and obviously Trevin Giles not having the best run either. So Marvin Vettori, it's a tough one, but I'm going to lean with Roman Dolidze. You're going to lean with Marvin Vettori, and we'll see what happens. We'll go through the rest of the card just quickly. Just give your picks. As we said, and we're trying to keep this short and sweet. But yeah, we've got a few standout. Chris Duncan, Omar Moraes. So obviously, I'm going to root for Chris Duncan. Sam Patterson, now Ashmos. Obviously, I'm going to root for Sam Patterson. This is going to be mostly biased because obviously I'm British. But Mohamed Mokeev, obviously I'm going with Mohamed Mokeev. Lorraine Murphy versus Gabriel Santos. I think it's a tough one. Gabriel Santos, NFA featherweight champion, making his debut. But I think Lorraine Murphy has got too much talent. And obviously, Christian Leroy Duncan, one of the guys that I'm really, really high on coming out of England right now. And I think he did get the spectacular knockout against Dusko Todorovic. Jake Hadley versus Malcolm Gordon. I'm going to go with Jake Hadley. It's a tough one, though. I feel like Jake Hadley is not as good as I thought he was. but it's a tough one for him at 125 pounds. Malcolm Gordon obviously been in the UFC for quite a few fights. John Wood versus Lona Carolina. I'm going to go John Wood. I think that's quite an easy pick. Jay Hybert versus Ludovic Klein. Jai Herbert. As you can see where these are going, and obviously Veronica Hardy versus Juliana Miller. I'm going to go for the tough winner, Juliana Miller, in that one. And obviously now Oscar's picks. I didn't do Jack Shaw versus Makwan Americani, but I am going to go with Jack Shaw.
Yeah, I'm going with Jack Shaw as well. He's moving up a weight class after losing to Ricky Simone in his last fight. That was the first loss of his professional career. And against Makwan Americani, Makwan, of course, offers a lot early in fights, but he doesn't offer a ton later in fights. He's got the signature anaconda choke that I believe Jack Shaw has prepared to defend. And once Americani can't get much going after the first round, we're going to see Jack Shaw's technique stand out there. He really suffered in the fight against Ricky Simone from a disadvantage in athleticism. I don't think he has the disadvantage in athleticism here against Makwan. So I say give me Jack Shore by unanimous decision. He's a very technical fighter, and Makwan Murakami is much more explosive and looking for the finish. Jack Shore lets finishes come to him. He could get a late submission here, but I think he gets a decision.
Yeah, and obviously go through the rest of your picks on the card as well. Starting from Chris Duncan.
I believe Chris Duncan is a very promising fighter, but he just has this Justin Gaethje syndrome where he just wants to have a war with everybody, and it almost cost him. Well, it cost him his spot in the UFC the first time around when he fought Vyacheslav Borshev. Borshev was losing that fight, but he was able to catch Chris Duncan and knock him out. And then Chris Duncan comes back to the Contender Series, and he didn't really learn. He fought Charlie Campbell, and Charlie Campbell basically had Chris Duncan out, and Chris Duncan was able to counter Charlie, and he gets the knockout there. When you're swinging like that, it's basically 50-50, and he's fighting a guy, Omar Morales, who has fought some pretty solid competition in the UFC and beat him. He's beaten Shane Young, Dong Young Ma. I really thought he was going to beat his last two opponents, Jonathan Pierce and Uros Medic, but in those fights, he looked tired. He looked a little older. He is 37 now. We could have the classic case of the young prospect getting first round KO, but I think Omar Morales will make Duncan pay for his reckless hooks, and I think he gets a second round knockout here.
Yeah, and obviously we've got fantastic. Obviously, talk about the rest of the card. John Wood as well returning. Jake Hadley, Christian Leroy Duncan. But the main ones I'm looking out for in this one, obviously, I'm looking out for Christian Leroy Duncan. Obviously, Lauren Murphy returning. Jai Herbert is always entertaining fights. One punch away of beating Ilala Taporia, may I add. Jake Hadley, obviously, but Mohamed Murkiev, obviously the best prospect that we probably have coming out of the UK right now. Phenomenal fighter, 22 as an amateur, 8-0 as a professional. The guy's a beast. And obviously Sam Patterson, we saw what he saw in the cage in his last fight in the Contender Series. Absolutely phenomenal fighter, very lengthy, very tall, very rangy for 155 pounds. I feel like he can cause some damage as well. And obviously Chris Duncan, we've got a Christian Leroy Duncan and we've got a Chris Duncan. Phenomenal. Chris Duncan, obviously, his power was on show. He's brawler, as we talked about. He loves the ball, loves to be in a fight. Rice could pose him a challenge, but I'm going to go Christian Duncan. He's going to get done. Jack Shaw as well, returning. Phenomenal. This is a phenomenal event. I'm really looking forward to it. The main event, obviously, the standout of the whole card. Obviously, it's going to be when it's Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman, and obviously Justin Gaethje, Rafael Figueiredo in the co-main event. We are in for a treat, ladies and gentlemen. This has been March and Silva MMA show. The quickest one we've probably ever done, 40 minutes, just about tick. An absolute pleasure, Oscar, to be joined back by you again. I think it's been phenomenal. And hopefully we can get this back up and running again. Obviously, you talked about the viewers have gone up on Spotify and all the audio listeners because they've been trying to tune in.
Absolutely. I thank you guys for looking out for new episodes, and now we're actually going to have something for you to consume. And make sure to follow us on Instagram at the March and Silva MMA show. We will post whenever a new episode has been uploaded to the listening platforms. So I thank you for following us and for patiently waiting for our return.
Yep, absolutely. It's been a good episode. Thank you so much for joining me, Oscar. Absolute pleasure. And hopefully, I'll see you next week on a Thursday. Wednesday. We can make a regular out of this, just like how we used to. But yeah, we've got such a fantastic MMA this week, and we've got Cage Warriors as well. Jordan Vacincic returning after his loss against Paul Hughes. We also do have PFL, but I can't remember who's fighting off the top of my head. But yeah, make sure to catch them all. Make sure to catch us next week, same time, same place, same area. So make sure you catch us there. Thank you very much for listening. We'll catch you all next week.